Coming up next on the Witness the World podcast, unlock your inner light.
We all take care of ourselves only and bring ourselves to the best state that we can possibly be in our growth journey. Wouldn't that be enough? Wouldn't that make an incredible world? So what are we focusing on? Constantly trying to give other people things that if we gave ourselves and embodied that example, we'd be good. We'd all be good.
The content here is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Any content here should not be construed as financial, medical, or any other type of professional advice. G'day everyone. Welcome to episode 30 of the Witness the World podcast. My name is Ben Choi, and today we'll be heading to Italy to continue on with our personal growth journey. On today's podcast, we'll be chatting with a corporate marketing specialist who made a spiritual shift during the depths of the pandemic. She's now on a mission to help people heal and connect with their inner self through meditation. We're pleased to have with us Alessandra Veronesi. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Ben. I love that intro. Simple to the point and exactly the way things are in this present moment for me. So thank you.
Excellent. So Alessandra, for a lot of people, the pandemic was a very challenging time. It created an environment where many encountered financial, relationship, and mental health adversities that they never experienced before. But at the same time, it was also an opportunity for people to self-reflect and get in touch with their spiritual side and really get to know what's really important for them in their life. So to start us off, could you please share a bit about your journey from your days climbing the corporate ladder, then over to the exploration phase of your life where you discovered psychedelics and mindfulness, and finally to where you are now, which is helping people heal through guided meditations?
Like many people during the pandemic, it was certainly an opportunity for awakening, which I was thrown into accepting. Prior to that, we could say that I followed the tried and true path. So I was lucky enough to go to a great high school in the US. I had a job within a corporate environment that was comfortable and cushy and did all the right moves, I suppose one could say, in terms of aligning myself with the tried and true path. And that was a not a bad decision in and of itself. But what I realized in time is that I never had stopped and connected with myself and asked myself what I truly wanted along the way. So what happened during the pandemic was a result of basically making one decision after another in full disconnection with my true authentic self. In fact, as an adult, what I later realized was that I had never once known what it was like to connect with myself. And so by the time the pandemic arrived, I was living already in Italy. I had moved from New York to Italy 3 years before that, because I'm also Italian and I had a curiosity to live to see what business would be like in Europe. And so I made that leap and continued traveling, working by objective, finding clients, exploring the realms of marketing. What happened was when the pandemic hit, I no longer had these external factors to define myself by. I no longer had opportunities to travel and be around other people who, in a way, were validating my lifestyle and my choices and my decisions. And I'm simplifying here. I mean, there were a lot of other factors in my childhood in terms of unhealthy emotional environments, which brought me to a place where I later discovered was inauthentic for me. So by the time COVID happened, it was a recipe for change, and I was crawling out of my skin in my own apartment with myself. And luckily, I wasn't worried about financials. I was worried about what do I do with myself here alone. And meditation found me. I found meditation. Meditation found me at the right time. I was struggling very much with just being alone with myself. I cannot, it was like 1,000 ants crawling through my body. And so by the time I discovered meditation, I was really, really thirsty for something that would give me some sort of a relief, you could say. And up until that point, I had always refused to meditate because it seemed like something that would take a very long time to have effect. And oftentimes the answers are simple, but we're always looking to solve them with the mind. And so, but then when I had nothing but time, and I experienced a very powerful shift, we can say, within the first 3 days of meditating, something that has not happened so often to me afterwards, but it was what one can compare to maybe an awakening of sorts. It was a light just going through my whole body. It was really, really intense. It felt like it lasted an infinity, but really it was maybe a couple of seconds, and it was healing, and within that moment I fell back into my body, but really, really connected with myself. And so that sort of started this whole new way of seeing the world, because when you're finally looking at the world from inside out versus what can the outside do for me inside, because I'm suffering, because I don't know who I am, and please confirm to me between all of your responses like that I'm doing okay. Now it's like, okay, I'm doing okay. I'm doing just fine. I'm exactly the way I should be. I'm enough. All those kinds of affirmations, which at the time I wasn't spiritual, so I was just feeling the vibe of that. And as that started settling, and of course I realized whatever this is, I'm doing this every day. Like I would really like to continue. And so that created the foundation for many new realizations on old subjects that are part of our daily lives, including relationships and how those relationships look when we feel differently inside in such a transformed way. And that became the foundation for about 72 different meditations that I started writing. For myself. So I started writing for myself and sharing them with others. And then it became the foundation for the first book that I published, which is really just a guidebook for anyone who's experiencing a need to relieve themselves of anxiety and all types of pressures that we might have inside. And the answer is always leading back within, even if we're working with the external. This continued on. I continued meditating. I continued working. I continued documenting how I was feeling, sharing that with those who were interested. I had a group chat that had a few people that were following along. And so it wasn't until a year later that I ran into what I later found out was a very temporary ad online, because it's not so legal to advertise in Italy. But I ran into a Facebook ad that said peyote ceremony near the lake. Here's the number to call. And so I just instantly messaged that number, because something I never knew much more about, but ever since college, I had a voice inside me say, one day you need to try peyote. So 15 years later, I see this ad and I say, yes, this is exactly what I need to try. Don't know much about it, but whatever this is, I'm in. And so that was my first experience. Oh, I forgot to mention, during COVID, I started growing mushrooms in my own apartment. And that was also a bit of a faded story, how that all came together and how many grew for me. And I did embark on an independent microdosing journey with myself. So that I was doing in addition to the meditation. And what I will say is it's really important for anyone who is considering plant medicine, at least as far as my experience has been, it is something that works exponentially well when you already have a practice which doesn't involve medicine. So, yes, it can be a big informational boost to just go cold turkey into a ceremony and of course a lot of things would happen to just about anyone, and I've seen that work as well. Having a practice already where we've established a connection with ourselves gives such a nice frame to the experience later on of when we go into these kinds of ceremonies. And it gives us the ability to know we can come back because it's not about the trip, it's about how you come back and or making sure you do. So yeah, so I had the microdosing situation. I also then later tried peyote and then had a wonderful experience as my first ceremony. Started exploring more of it, felt ready to enter those realms of consciousness that we're up until then just opening up more and more. And so as I was expanding my, so it's kind of like a tree, right? Like you expand the top and you expand the bottom. So the roots continue to grow down, and as you grow your roots on the bottom and find your groundedness through meditation, through working out, daily activity, conversation, etc., that gives you the strength to grow from the top, which is exploring the cosmos and going on a wild journey or astral meditation, anything else that is more air and ethereal based. So being able to have these two balanced out together. And I'm still on this life experience with the awareness that there are so many tools that we can explore to help us find our way home, right? In a way, we're all going home. All paths converge. One thing I will also say, which is a funny recent realization, so small little distinction. I'm not here to heal anyone because everybody knows exactly what they need. So my meditations, especially the more recent ones that I'm putting together, are about showing whoever is listening how to get the information for themselves. So it's really just giving someone a space to uncover that and get there in their own way. The healing that sticks the most is whatever insight you get from yourself. And I think that is the greatest gift I received in my healing journey, was learning to trust my own voice. And I would be remiss not to pass that on.
That's a great overview, Alessandra. You covered a lot there, and I wanted to kind of explore a little bit about the psychedelic kind of experiences. You talked in some previous episodes about how the ayahuasca experience works, and you touched on microdosing, mushrooms, peyote, which is a different type of plant-based medication. So, wondered if you could maybe just give us a kind of like a high level, like what was your biggest breakthrough when you were having those, going through those different psychedelic medications, and maybe tell us like which ones were like more intense, how did they kind of work differently, and yeah, what was your biggest takeaway from those experiences?
Have you, out of curiosity, Ben, have you tried any of these medicines in the past yet?
I haven't tried it yet. However, I do have an ayahuasca trip booked in the coming months. So I'm going to be exploring it and learning a little bit for myself. So it's coming up.
Okay. So keep in mind that to anybody listening or watching, anything I'm about to say right now is my story. I asked because what's funny is one of the most interesting episodes I did was about my experiences with peyote and ayahuasca, and it's a great podcast as well. And the host never tried these things. And that inclined her to explore these answers. And I get it because I was the same way when I was about to go on this journey. I tried to look it up and learn from other people's experiences. And ultimately, like I said, if you have, which I believe you do, I can feel that from you. It sounds like you've spent a lot of time strengthening your foundation and your core and your, so if anybody is looking to do something like this, it's sort of like how we approach anything in life. If you go towards something with a spirit of desperation, I'm not saying this is the case where you're like, oh my gosh, everything is falling apart. I need ayahuasca to show me what's going on. Mm, okay, you will get your answers, and it's going to be possibly, I'm not sure, I'm not her. It could be tough. It could be a tough experience. If one is already actively involved in many different ways of understanding what is taking place in their lives and approach it from that place, then it becomes a very different energy. And it can be educational, it can be celebratory eventually. I've had maybe about 15, 16 ayahuasca ceremonies in my life I've participated in. And only one of those was what one would call a tough night and and a very big lesson for me, which I carry with me until this day. And whenever I steer away from it, life shows me immediately, remember what you learned on that evening. So one thing I've noticed is everybody gets the experience that's right for them. So there's like this some sort of a, we all have this kind of guidance that's right for us. That's like the key to getting us through our lives to the best of our abilities. And my particular lesson, very strong and clear, was you cannot save other people. You can only be there to show and elevate them in that process. And the way that unraveled for me in the ceremony was that there was a person in the group with us who had a very strong migraine. And I sympathized. I've had my fair share, and I couldn't believe that she wasn't getting any help for it, nor was she asking necessarily very much, but she was sharing with me that information. And so, right before the ceremony started and we were doing our intentions into the fire, and I was thinking to myself what I wanted to learn that night, I sent a bit of a micro request to the plant. And I said, look, I've had a great time so far. At the time, I had had two ceremonies. The first one, I was laughing all night. Lovely evening. Hilarious. Second night was really beautiful as well, exploring nature, starting the fire, connecting with elements. So I had this little conversation and I said, listen, if there's any way that, and everybody else was really struggling on those nights. So I said, if there's any way that I can take away some of this pain that other people are feeling, I could, if it's not too bad, I'll take it, so that everybody else, and, and now that I think about the insanity of that intention, like I'm not Jesus, like nobody should be asking, that's not, so I got slapped, like like it just was like a night of like, you do not do that. Who do you think you are? You are only in charge of yourself, right? And and that is more than enough. That is enough. That is, if we all take care of ourselves only and bring ourselves to the best state that we can possibly be in our growth journey, wouldn't that be enough? Wouldn't that make an incredible world? So what are we focusing on? Constantly trying to give other people things that if we gave ourselves and embodied that example, we'd be good. We'd all be good. That was my lesson. And to varying degrees, I sometimes am reminded of it today when, it's very difficult sometimes we want to help more than we can, and it can be easy to slip into caregiving and the what's it called, people please, maybe not people pleasing in this particular case, um but yeah, wanting to seeing in others a struggle that we've already dealt with in ourselves, so therefore feeling like we want to help because we have already learned that lesson, so we want to give them the experience of not having to go through it. But that's not our responsibility, right? So everybody's process is their choice and something that they're meant to experience.
Well, that's a really revealing experience there. It was almost like kind of like I guess a microcosm of what you've been dealing with all your life. I guess you've always wanted to kind of take other people's pain away and do that, and
Mhm.
then in that one instance, then it all kind of is manifested in that moment. I guess that's kind of my general takeaway from that. Would it be fair to say like it was been happening all your
Yeah,
life, and this was just the one random thing that you were doing at that time at that ceremony?
exactly. And I'm so grateful for that experience because what it was also showing is that it's not really so, for lack of a better word, scalable for your own self exponential growth. And if you're going to be in the flow and if you're going to be improving and growing and learning and discovering and transforming and passing that along through your own vibration into this world, it's not so scalable if every time someone has a headache, you stop, for example, hypothetically speaking, you stop to deal with that for them, right? And so that was about 3 years ago. But again, the medicine speaks to us in in the language that we best receive it, through the methods that we best understand, in a way that will stick with us, because you're also accessing through the medicine, you're accessing also your own portal of inner wisdom. And your own portal of inner wisdom is the connection. You create that connection. And so there's a little bit of, your language flavor in how it gets delivered. Some need, in a way, who knows how it's happening, but maybe it's also happening by your acceptance of this experience. Sometimes you need a lot of vomit, a lot of buckets. Or other times you can have, you, maybe if your life is really, really hard, you will be shown gentleness. And that's your medicine, is actually to feel love, real love one night. There was one person next to me the first, for 3 nights, we had 3 nights on my first experience. And this person, I kid you not, slept through every night. She took 3 times as much as I did, and she slept the whole night, 3 nights in a row, never had a vision. This also happens. When you need to rest, the medicine will give you the rest. So a lot of times we talk about, wow, this crazy thing. And yes, those things happen. But it just depends on your body. The first night, sometimes it's an opening. Sometimes the first night you will sleep the whole time and it opens you into it. And then you come for the next night. And then the next night is, a powerful lesson. And the third night is even deeper. And that's usually how the order goes. Particularly with there's yahe, which is what is done in Colombia, which is different than uni or ayahuasca, which is done in Brazil. And in the yahe tradition, you have 3 nights in a row. And reason for that is because the first night opens you, second night you have the profound work, the third night is deeper and celebratory and dancing. So yeah, but all of it is if you feel ready for it and you feel like, then it is a beautiful experience, and it is your relationship with her that will turn into your own account.
Thanks for that share, Alessandra. So, giving me some background. So, when I go for my trip in a couple of months, that's something good context there. And I'm prepared for everything from one end of the spectrum or the other, and just welcoming whatever insights come my way. So, yeah, looking forward to that. So, I wanted to actually ask you, like, putting on my skeptic hat on now, and you've been in the healing space for a while, and I guess the question I had is like, generally speaking, for the plant-based medicine, it seems like it's a good supportive mechanism to, yeah, help us, build, I guess, a foundation and carry on with our healing journey. But I guess what I kind of wonder is like, if we're so like dependent like on the medication, then would that be kind of counterproductive for the healing? So I guess the analogy I use is like, if you're taking like antibiotics for a throat infection, you take it for a week and then it clears you out and then your body takes over. Would the same not apply for plant-based medicine, whether you're microdosing, going through ayahuasca? I think you touched on it a little bit if you just want to use it as like a fix, but then you still need to do the work. And if you just keep going back just for that to think you're for the healing, maybe that's like it's kind of like you're not really addressing the root issue. Like you have to make sure that you're doing the work. I think that's also equally important there. So I wonder if you can kind of speak to that a little bit, and from what you've seen and the people that you've helped out over the years.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful question. And I agree it's something to be aware of, right? So, and one last thing about the practicality of the ceremonies, suggestion to all, take magnesium following the journey. Just or minerals, but magnesium is like a it's like an old wives' tale. Like it's really good to replenish your body after you've gone through the cosmos, right? You need minerals. Spiritual growth requires minerals, or it makes it easier to integrate. It's like the infinite paradox, right? You have on the one hand, okay, we're going through cycles, life is cyclical, we're healing, or we're transforming, we're learning, we're growing. On the other hand, at what point do you start living and stop focusing on that journey of healing? So, my personal experience has been that I was on this spiritual rocket ship. I was lucky to be involved with many people in the retreat world, and I was benefiting from being invited almost on a monthly basis for 1 year to experience these ceremonies. And it was really, really useful for me at that point. I haven't partaken in this kind of a journey in about a year. So it went from every month for that 1 year, which was exactly what I needed at the time, to more of a balanced, you kind of go with the flow, right? And the reason why, and when I was doing it every month, I was actually facilitating and helping out. So it wasn't all the time that I was going through a full-blown journey. I was staying in a very neutral state at other times and helping others, helping keep the space and educating myself in those realms. I have seen people who have been in the ceremony world for decades and still get a little bit stuck on a certain journey and are working through something, and you think, wow, after 75 times doing ayahuasca, you would think that you'd be pretty good by now, right? Like it's time to dance and sing and enjoy, maybe. Which is why it's so important how you are after, what you do after. Because you can be spiritual, you can talk to beings, you can frolic in an imaginary mountain with unicorns and fairies. But if you still can't talk to your parents when you get home, if you still can't have a conversation with compassion towards another fellow human being and not judge, if you're not able to hold your own darkness and not project it onto other people, blaming everyone else for bad vibes or whatever it is that you think you're thinking when you're in a spiritual mindset, then you're not humanly integrating yet what's happening. Because at the end of the world, we are having a human experience in a three-dimensional realm where the material, tactile, taste, everything is here for a reason. So it's very important to whatever extent that your own consciousness tolerates and encourages, to be aware of this paradox, and flow. And sometimes there will be times where you go on one side and then you kind of go to the other and then you kind of find yourself in the middle. But always listen to your intuition, and I've found that if I'm not thinking about it, then it's not the time. So I have had moments where I think to myself, oh, wow, I would be very curious to have a new experience these days. And then boom, I find an experience and I sign up for that experience and that was the right time. But months might go by, and this is why it's important to have some kind of a way to ground and self-regulate without medicine, because ultimately it is not so required. It is a boost. It's an expediting act. It can be expediting for many realizations, and shamans and roadmen and maestros, and they're trained. They're in a lineage that is meant to experience this often because this is quite literally their job. But we're not in a place globally where we can all just stop, sit around, and just have visions all day, right? It's important to also take those visions. How can we contribute to society, humanity? We have real problems here, things that we can fix starting with ourselves if we so choose to see them in a constructive way. And so we must kind of be self-aware of when are we using it to escape, and how much is that taking away from our ability to feel like we are in our true purpose? And are we in a cycle of identifying with healing, or was there a purpose for it? And I forget what book it's in. I think it's the one, gosh, this is a classic book. Anyway, ayahuasca is known as the television of the jungle, right? By many tribe members in Brazil. It's also meant to be a celebration. It can be fun. Like children take it too. They're already connected. They're enjoying themselves. So don't forget that sometimes dancing and singing and being in a circle with a community of open-hearted people is medicine too. And so it doesn't need to be, oh my gosh, I have this trauma, I have that trauma. That stuff gets solved anyway. Whether you choose to heal through abuse, that's your choice, or you can heal through happiness. You can choose how you want to heal. It depends what's going to resonate with you.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good perspective, Alessandra. So I guess my takeaway from that is if we use these plant-based medicines as like a boost, like a vitamin C shot every so often, just to keep us on track, but also we got to be, accountable to the work that we do normally, and that should be, you know, going, according to plan, and we got to keep going with that consistently. Then it forms like a supportive, I guess, base for our healing and growth. Then, so I guess that's kind of where I'm seeing it. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I want to kind of pivot over now to we talked about like the hows to heal, and then now let's just look into like the what to heal. So when you were, I guess, taking your initial healing steps, like through the ayahuasca and different things, I guess over the last few years, people have a lack of direction. I guess is one of the things that you felt. They're, I guess, maybe disengaged, and that's kind of one of the things that they want to heal. And wondering, like, like through your experience and people you worked with, like, what are like the initial steps that you like? Let's say I got to that point, I want to heal. Like, what would you suggest are the first few steps to start making those breakthroughs? And I put my foot down. I want to do something different in my life. I wonder if you can just share some of your perspective. Like, what are the maybe a few important things that you need to ask yourself, and be open to trying?
Absolutely. Well, I'm afraid the answer is terribly simple, and that is you need to get out of your mind. And most people stay in the mind all their lives and become prisoners of one. The mind is a beautiful thing, but it's one of many multidimensional components that make us into who we are. So even the lessons that we learn through plant medicine ceremonies and or without medicine if we're meditating are quite simple, really. It really just brings you back to connection within yourself, right? So understanding what it feels like. Who are you when you're alone with yourself? Do you have a relationship that is kind? Because the way you treat yourself is the way that others will treat you. So it's really important to take a look at how we treat ourselves. Very often, a lot of things seem complicated, but they lead back to maybe a lack of self-worth, a sense of shame, a fear of the right to exist, a desire to control things, which is fear, fear of abandonment. So these are all macro categories that all stem from fear. So the beauty is, I don't even know the number, arbitrary. Let's say there's 390 different tools that we can use to heal ourselves, including meditation, breath work, aerial yoga, anything, right? There's 390 different ways that we can Google and figure out how to do this. Whichever one that, and also the medicine works this way too. If you and I go to a ceremony and you've got an earache and I've got a footache, we're both going to have some kind of a journey where your earache's going to heal and my foot. So it's not like precise doctor operation here. As soon as you learn how to open your heart, expand into a situation, which you learn by going within and breathing, and it's deathly simple. Deathly is a strong word. I don't know why that came out, but death is also a rebirth and a celebration. So we'll go with it. As soon as you familiarize yourself with that concept, which at first is foreign, and you jump in and out of those states because we are so used to the patterns that we've learned in our past, right? And by the way, all of our senses of safety, worthiness, all those things I mentioned in those examples before, it is said that they are formed by the time we're 6 or 7 years old, right? The creation of the subconscious. Okay, so our conscious minds are able to manage about 6 to 8 thoughts per second, meaning you can manage the knowledge of simultaneously writing back to an email, making sure you have your keys to get to the car, like what movie you're going to see, who's texted you. Those are things that you can manage, right? 6 to 8 things per second. The subconscious, which is silent, which we do not hear, which guides and drives what we're attracting throughout our behavior, is like 2 million thoughts per second, right? Or 2 billion. I forget which one it is, but it's a lot of thoughts that we are not aware. We don't know what we don't know. And that is what is getting readjusted and elevated through these modalities. So it's hard to say where the fixing happens, but trust that as you move towards yourself, towards love, towards the light, towards choosing from a quantum field where new solutions exist outside of your current view of a situation, which is where you access when you go into some of these states, that inevitably, and of course, like the neurological evidence, right? That new neural pathways are opened up when you can look at it from any direction. You can look at it from science, you can look at it from spirituality, you can look at it from, new age mindfulness. There's no wrong way to begin. There's no wrong way to pray. To pray. I like how that it rhymes, but in general, to work on yourself. If your intention is to improve yourself, go towards your authenticity and become the person you're meant to be in your purpose, which means happy. And what is happiness but the confidence of knowing that no matter how something might go, you feel good and safe in your body because you can bring yourself back to that state no matter where you are, no matter how uncomfortable the situation is. And what eventually happens is today, a bad day today for me is better than a good day back then. It doesn't mean I don't have problems. I do. I do have daily things that come up, and sometimes, especially now with all of these like solar flares and eclipses and Mercury retrogrades and all these things, like all the energy is accelerated and all the lessons are coming in cycles of, cyclones. But the problems also become more sophisticated in that when you have the awareness of why something is taking place and you brought yourself to understand where this originated from, or how to, how to derive a lesson from something that's coming towards you, how to make it work to your benefit because it is happening for you. Thank you for this lesson. Finally, like I get that too. Then you just realize we're all in one big playground, to a school ground, learning from each other. Right now, like, you are me and I am you. I am learning from you and you're learning from my experience. And together we're creating this episode. Without you, I wouldn't have been saying these words. Without these words, maybe someone else may not have picked up on something that was worth it for them. Yeah.
That's well said there, Alessandra. So I think kind of my big takeaway here is that growth and those initial first steps, maybe the most important thing is just to take the first step. Whether you go left, whether you go right, whether you kind of go right down the middle, just take that first step, and then you're making progress, and feel confident that you are making progress because you're further ahead than where you were before, which was standing still. So that's well said. So I want to kind of pivot over now to the meditation side. And one of the learnings that I've had over the years, I wanted to kind of pick your brain on. So meditation for me, I guess it's kind of helped center me in the present moment. And what I mean by that is, years ago, I used to, have these thoughts, 1,000 thoughts in 1 second, and dwell on the past. What could I have done in this situation? I could have done this report differently at work, made it better. And at the same time, I would look at things like in the future as like, oh, if this didn't happen, I'm worrying if that doesn't happen, worrying about things that are out of my control. Like a lot of things like this is very common for many people today. And you're getting pulled in the past, the future, but you forget about the present. And I feel that's what meditation really can help you with. Just stay in the present, focus on what you can do, and that can help alleviate like a lot of anxiety issues. Probably, I know for me, it's cleared myself quite a bit. I have a bit of a meditation routine for that, and is that kind of your discovery as well? And I would imagine that would be the discovery for many people that, yeah, it keeps you in the present moment. And then you can kind of sort out, what's noise and what's important, and then kind of take it from there. So, yeah, just wondering your thoughts on that.
Well, that's beautiful. So I have to say I resonate with that interpretation. That is certainly something that it has done for me. Gosh, I mean, meditation is it's pervasive in a good way, right? It can really just sugarcoat whatever part of you needed some extra sugar, it'll give it to you. It can lower blood pressure, it can increase concentration. Primarily, what you're saying in general is correct. It shifts you to understanding the value of the present moment, because if we think about it, when you travel at the speed of light, there is no such thing as time, right? So effectively, we are running on one long infinite moment that is constantly enhancing and expanding across this grid of probabilities that we constantly alter based on our free choice. So if we're in this moment of now, we are wasting our capacity to impact when we're focusing on things that do not exist, which is past and future. They don't exist effectively. You can't create them. You can't impact them more than anything, right? You can sort of try to influence things. And of course, like in the linear present time, those things do exist. So, and I will say there's, not to be, there are other benefits for those who may resonate with more carnal examples. I would say that it can really increase your enjoyment of sex, because I think a lot of people, when they have sex, are not in the moment, and they distract themselves and they take it as a chore, or they do it, as a way to escape rather than connect and get intimate. And when you learn how to breathe, and when you learn how to not be awkward in the moment, because in fact you associate it with such a beautiful experience, such as the one you just stated, the ability to confront the complexities of reality, understand how to govern the mind, which, everything is mental, right? Thanks to the mind, we're able to comprehend what is also not the mind. One of the first principle of the Kabbalion, the universe is mental. Within that allness is also nothingness. So wherever you choose to look from, it can be really, really grounding, because at the end of the day, when we find a place of stillness, we're giving things around us a chance to find their placement. And we're giving them a chance to find their placement as we set a nice vibration for it. And so therefore, things change when we even seemingly do nothing. And I don't know if you've had this experience before, when there's an energetic shift, which can come from meditation or certain exercises that you can do, even using NLP and things like this. When something shifts, suddenly emails come that you've been waiting for 3 weeks ago. Text messages come through. That person who was ignoring you suddenly is writing you back. And it's like, it's all energy that's moving, and you're moving frequencies, and you're resonating with different people at that point. So there's so many benefits, and you receive the benefits as they're meant to come to you, just like, the foot and the ear. And it can be difficult to approach at times. It can feel intimidating, and also some meditations are less attractive than others. I'm curious to know what kinds you're following, and what has helped you.
Right, so that's kind of the next thing I was going to get into. So, just to give you a little background, so my routine before I go to bed every day, it's a 10 minutes right now. I do like non-guided meditation. I have some background music, and I just close my eyes and I just let the thoughts pass. And I mean, I've done a lot of work over the years, so now I don't really have too many thoughts going on in my head at one time, which is fantastic. I just kind of just be in my moment, just be present. And I guess I always what I wonder is like, it's the next step for me. And for me, and for people out there, maybe they want to take a next step in their meditation. Maybe it is to pursue a guided meditation or also incorporate breath work, which you are an expert at as well. So I was kind of curious to know, like, maybe if we incorporate breath work into our meditation, do that a little bit more intentional there, would that make the experience more impactful? You get a lot more out of it. I'm sure you've been through this before. So yeah, what are your takeaways from incorporating, breath work into the meditation and just being more intentional about it?
Well, you do know that breath work was introduced after LSD was no longer legal to be experimented on
No,
in the 60s.
did not know that.
Okay.
Okay.
So breath work can be trippy. It can induce a journey.
Hmm.
So you might want to try that and just get accustomed to the state that you could put yourself in as a little bit of a training and boot camp for your upcoming experience with the lady who you're going to meet, known as ayahuasca. So absolutely. And I was going to say another thing to keep in mind. So little shout out to the book I just published in December. It's really end of December and January. It includes 15 free guided meditations so it's called Desperado, but I'm sure it'll be in the notes. But what I would say is breath work is amazing. Not recommended necessarily if someone is pregnant or suspecting that they might be, because holding the breath is not so good for, and releasing energy is not so good for the creation of energy. You want to kind of hold it in, and. But in my experience, breath work is a very powerful tool. And if you haven't tried it yet, I am so excited for you, because it can really induce similar breakthroughs. I've had breathwork sessions where, it just I was crying, about the earth. Like I was viewing the earth from this perspective and just crying as if I was speaking with, sort of like the way your logo looks like. That was sort of what was appearing for me as I was in the cosmos and looking down from whatever other planet I must have been visiting. I mean, there are some incredible breathwork meditations out there. I would suggest his name is The Breath Guy. He's written a book about it as well. He's on Instagram. That's where I started during the pandemic. He was doing free lives on Instagram, I think every week. I know he has an app now. It's called Flourish, but and I believe it offers some free ones before signing up for it. I literally dated a guy and didn't treat him so well because I wasn't interested in the situation. But he said, I could never hate you because you introduced me to breath work. So you will always be someone that I love. So this is what I think about breath work.
Okay, interesting. So the breath guy, well, I'll keep an eye on it, and you can weave that into the meditation, like it should be a part, it should be separate, or it should be kind of woven into the meditation and how you breathe. Do you inhale, exhale, like hold it for 30 seconds, or just wondering what have you had experiences with integrating the
It
two?
depends. Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to do. So the meditations that I have for free on the website, the 15 guided ones, include breath work at times. So utilizing some of the breath work technique, like a little bit of breath work, a little bit of holding your breath, a little bit of breathing out. When you're playing with oxygen levels, you're also cleansing your system, you're filtering new things through. Like what you're doing right now in your meditation practice is actually quite advanced because you are it's easier when when the invitation is breathe this way, for example, like pretend you're breathing out of a straw, right? So that's a lot easier to stay in the present moment because you're literally like doing that, performing that action. So, and because it's not as natural as breathing naturally can be, you're concentrating, you're in that moment. So and at the same time, you're producing physiological response, which is also happening in the brain, which is relaxing you, which then puts you into an induced state. So, my favorite order of operations is to initially do some maybe even aggressive breath work, following guidance as well. It's important to do it guided and perhaps be mindful of doing it on your own. Although I have done it on my own very often. But anyway, so just focusing on breathing, like a specific type of breathing for about 20 minutes. And then a trusted visualization. So that's why I recommended the breath guy because he has really beautiful visualizations that follow all that, tough work in a way. Because 20 minutes of conscious altered breathing deserves a reward, and you're in this state and it's very vulnerable and beautiful, so you want something to guide you in a benevolent way towards a beautiful vision. So I'm actually working on some myself, but at this moment I cannot offer anything like that, so I am offering the next, the best thing that I've known in this world.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for those insights there, Alessandra. So we covered a lot of great stuff today, and as we kind of wind down this podcast, I always leave off, I guess, with a two-parter question to close. So here goes. What are you most grateful for, and what are you most looking forward to in the future?
Mm. I am most grateful for the opportunity to be grateful about all of the lessons that have come to me this past month, which have been chapeau universe, because they've been hefty. So I'm grateful for the hard times, for real. I'm grateful for myself for getting through them. And I'm grateful for the authentic people around me in my life that just have embraced and welcomed me back, in some ways over and over when times get tough.
And what are
And
you
what am I
most
most
looking forward to in the future?
Oh gosh. So I am traveling to the States. So in about 2 weeks. So I'm really looking forward to being in the US. It's been 3 years since I was in New York and 2 years since I was in the US. So that is a superficial present moment thing I am looking forward to. And I'm putting together a project which involves meditation, a company project, or a company which is also a project. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes and giving a lot of people relief, maybe, or providing a platform for others to find relief within themselves.
Thanks for sharing, Alessandra. So, if people want to know more about you, where can they find you?
Easiest way would be on Instagram. So holy_shiver, holy shiver. There you can, there's a link tree. And so from there, they'll be able to, there's my website is available, my YouTube channel where I put other types of experimental meditations if anybody's curious to try them. My books, which I'm really proud of, A New Banana and Desperado. I think they're really friendly looking and can be a nice read for anybody who wants to be uplifted. But yeah, it's all on Instagram.
Thanks, Alessandra. We'll be sure to add those links and details to our show notes. So that's a wrap for episode 30. If you like this podcast, please give it a thumbs up or hit the subscribe button below. If you didn't like this podcast, give it a thumbs down, but please do tell us why with a comment below. If you have any other comments, feedback, or suggestions, you know what to do. Thanks for joining us, and namaste, everyone.